The conference finals are set, and in many ways, it's the two series we were anticipating all year. Certainly in the Western Conference, Thunder Spurs, so much to break down there, but the Knicks and the Cavs feel also like the two best teams in the East. We have two great semifinals lined up. We're talking about that today on the All-NBA Show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, who will be on the call for every single game between the Knicks and the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then after that, every game of the NBA Finals. Legs, how you doing today?
Great, man. I'm excited. I am in the Big Apple, getting ready to take on the Eastern Conference Finals tomorrow night. I cannot wait. The atmosphere is going to be unlike anything really in the NBA, man. You know that when the Garden is rocking and you're talking about one series removed from the finals, there's nothing quite like that in the NBA. So I'm sure they're going to come out in full force tomorrow night and get the series started.
Knicks fans and Madison Square Garden have always been just epic. It's the Mecca of basketball. The fan base is amazing. All this stuff, they're big. But I kind of feel like they're bigger than ever. I don't know if it's just because of that Philly takeover last series and just how loud it was. But, I mean, you've been around long enough. You've played in that building. Does it feel like it's even swelled into something even different than in eras past?
Yeah, it does. It does. You know, and look, I played against those great Knicks teams in the 90s. You know, that was just such a war. And back then, you know, you think about teams that were in your division, you played them 6 times. So we had to play the Knicks 6 times when I was in Washington, man. And they had that group with Anthony Mason and, you know, Starks and Charles Smith and Ewing and Oakley. And it was just a war. And, yeah, the environment was awesome. The building's always great. They were really good teams at that time. It's just different now, man. The electricity. I've done – I don't know how many games here this year, several, but they were all later in the year, all of them. I didn't do any games in this building, I don't think, like before like February. And then I hit a few here at the end of the season, had a couple games already in the playoffs, and now here we are for this. And it does feel like it's bigger than ever. Listen, when you got a city like this and you haven't had a champion in 53 years, like it just continues to build like this pressure cooker every year waiting to just explode if they're able to get this across the finish line and actually win a championship. And so each year it just goes up another level, man. And that's what I'm feeling right now about this team. And they feel like if it's not this year, when? That's kind of how I think everybody is feeling in New York.
Well, we're going to get to that one here at the end of today's show, but we're going to start, though, with our game breakdown. We always break down the games, the actual games here, and so we're going to go to our game breakdown here presented by FanDuel, and that is, of course, Game 7. Legs, for my first note here, we've had 4 Game 7s in 2 rounds of this playoffs. It feels like a lot. I don't know if statistically it is, but it does feel like a lot, and now we've had 2 teams lose on their home court in a Game 7, which used to never happen. And it feels like over the last 5 years, it's happened a lot that the home team has lost in a Game 7. I don't know if there's anything to that, but this one was a Pistons blowout loss at home in Game 7 after a very impressive Game 6 win on the road. Do you see it? I mean, first of all, the Game 7s, it seems like we go there a lot. And then on top of that, the idea that, you know, home teams may be less of an advantage than eras past.
Well, what's wild is look at the Game 7s. I mean, you know, this is crazy. Like this series, where at first Cleveland can't win a road game, right, through the first series and a half. They only win at home, and now they don't have home court advantage against the Pistons. They have to win Game 5, and they get that win, game that I actually was part of the call of. They go home, and you're like, okay, you got your road win. Now you're going home, close it out, and they can't do it. And the Pistons not only can't they do it, they get smoked at home. And now you're thinking to yourself, well, how in the world are they going to recover and go on the road and win again?
Right.
When that happened to you at home? And this game's not even competitive. This game's over in the second quarter. So wild series. Doesn't make a lot of sense in a lot of ways. And I think this is one of the strangest endings you will ever see to a 60-win team to end of their season.
Yeah.
A 60-win team, 1 seed, in a Game 7 at home, not really competitive from basically the first quarter and a half on and getting blown out in your own floor. It's really strange. It's not uncharted territory, but it's incredibly rare to see what happened yesterday. And I think what happened was it all came to fruition at the same time. The issues that the Detroit Pistons have and the issues of their roster, the issues of the lack of offensive threats, it all came to a head at exactly the same time. And give the Cavs credit because they played a really clean game. They shot it well. They didn't look affected by nerves. They got where they wanted to on the floor. They shared it. The ball went to the right guy, and guys stepped up and made shots at the exact same time. The Pistons couldn't get anything going offensively. So that's what you get, man. When one team plays really, really well, one team plays as poorly as they can offensively, this is what it looks like.
And I think this is the big take here is that they were down 0-2 and looking terrible. Harden had his disaster class game. They won 4 of the next 5, and I think looked kind of dominant in a lot of the, not throughout the entirety of it, but in large portions of it, culminating with this Game 7. And to me, that's kind of the story. I think the Pistons had a bit of a ceiling that they were bumping up against in all of their playoff games, round 1 and in round 2. Like, I think it was hard for the Pistons to have the type of game that the Cavs had yesterday. But the Cavs, to me, that might have been their best game of the entire year because every piece of it came together. Their defense looked great. Their transition offense looked great. Their half-court offense looked great. They moved the ball. And most important of all, Donovan Mitchell just got into whatever he wanted, especially early in this game, getting into the paint off of dribble penetration and then throwing up lobs. And then when he got going, like when they built a bit of a lead and he got going in a rhythm, I don't remember if it was the third quarter or where it was, where he's just started, it felt like he was doing whatever he wanted with the ball in his hands to get to his spots. It just, to me, that's what it feels like. It all came together, and Donovan Mitchell was kind of in this game at the forefront of stirring everything and making the right read every time.
The difference between the two teams was Cleveland Cavaliers have multiple guys that can attack you off the dribble. Now, Harden didn't have a great game, but he was in the lane a lot.
Yep.
He was in the lane a lot, and he made their bigs better. And when the trade was made to get him, the way I broke it down was because I know he's got warts. He's got things that have happened in the postseason to him, and everybody was questioning now you'll never get it done with James Harden when they made the move. I didn't feel that way because I said the risk is worth it to me because he can make plays for other people that Garland can't. Darius Garland's a very good offensive player. Darius Garland cannot make the type of late finds to the bigs that Harden can. He just can't. Harden excels at that. Is one of the best this league's ever seen at being able to get into the paint and the late find, whether that's a wraparound to a cutter, whether that's a pocket pass, a lob, and they're late. Like the defense is waiting to commit. Is he going to shoot it? Okay, now I go to Harden at the last second. He makes a pass to somebody. He can also throw like any kick out 3-point shooter pass that you need. So even if he does struggle offensively and he doesn't look comfortable making shots and he doesn't look as aggressive, which he definitely did in this game, he still was in the paint, breaking you down with his size and his strength, and then his vision pays off at the end. And then Mitchell was comfortable shooting the ball, was comfortable getting into the lane also, but then shooting the three. He looked like, one of the better versions of himself. So they have two guys that could do that. Pistons have one guy that can do that. That's it. Pistons have one chase around motion shooter to cause problems. The Cavs have multiple guys like that. The Pistons have like one big really. I mean, Paul Reed played pretty well. I'm going to give him credit.
I thought you were talking about him. I thought he was the one big.
Yeah. I mean, he played probably, better than you would think he would, but he's not known for that. Yeah. Jalen Duren is their all-star big, disappeared in the entire postseason the entire time. Yeah. Look at the Cavs. They got multiple bigs. So the difference was so glaring in terms of options offensively. You don't need everybody to play great for the Cavs. You don't need your best guys to play great because they have so many different guys that can step up on a given night and hurt you. Pistons just don't have that. And when Cade Cunningham gets shut, and to me, honestly, Adam, the thing that turned all of this around for the Pistons and why they're not playing in the conference finals, Tobias Harris was sensational in the postseason, okay? He had 8 consecutive 20-point games going back to the last 5 of the Orlando series, first 3 in this series. Game 4, they lose to go 2-2. He didn't have a field goal in the second half of that game. And you're kind of like, okay. Interesting. His first real drought of the postseason. You know what he did the next 3 games? 8 for 32. That's how he closed it out. And that's how they were getting by without Duren, without, like, Duncan Robinson didn't play in a game and you could face guard him. They still were getting by. How? Their defense is great. Cade Cunningham was for the most part good to great every night. And then Tobias Harris was having the best postseason run of his career. And it dried up. And once it dried up, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get losing 2 out of the last 3 games, including getting blown out on your home court in a game 7 because they were hanging on that 20 points he was giving them. Makes a huge difference, and that completely went away. He ran out of gas. He's older. Who knows what happened to Tobias Harris? But that's where it ended. When his offense ended, their season ended.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get back to that in just a second because I think informs a lot of how we think about where the Pistons go from here, which is a very interesting question. But just to tie a bow on the Cavs, though, we're going to talk later about the Cavs-Knicks series, and I think the Knicks have the upper hand here. I think they have peaked at a higher degree and stayed at that peak for longer than the Cavs have. But there's one interesting thing about the Cavs, in my opinion, and that is you were mentioning James Harden. I actually think he was phenomenal in this series after Game 2. And it was phenomenal in a specific way. He became the table setter, not the scorer. And I think we think of James Harden as both. You know, he has the ball in his hands and he's going to create the offense and finish the offense. Donovan Mitchell in years past, I think, has overly dominated his team's possessions. Like, as series get deeper, he takes on more of the responsibility in a way that feels like pressing more than effective. I think that the Cavs have settled into what is the only formula I really believe in them, which is that James Harden sets the table. He's a very smart player. I think he figured out how to attack the Pistons. He set the table, moved the pieces around, kicked it to Donovan Mitchell to take advantage. And that, to me, was like the right balance. And that's why I look at this. When you say they have 2 creators, that could be your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. And that has a low ceiling or a medium ceiling. When it becomes, I set the table, you attack and finish, then it's like, okay, both guys are now doing the thing they're best at this moment. And when I watch that game, and really the last 5 games of the series, I look at it and I go, that's a formula that if they can perfect it, I think it actually is very dangerous even to a Knicks team. The problem is the Knicks have perfected their system for like 7 straight games in the playoffs. The Cavs reached that level periodically so far, but have not been able to live in it just yet.
Yeah, that's all very well said. And I think where you like James Harden historically is when he's not the guy that has to go get you 30 in a big spot in the playoffs, right? Because you saw the struggles with that in Houston. And he goes on to Brooklyn. I don't even take that in consideration because that was such a weird situation and the injuries they had. I don't even know what to make of the time in Brooklyn. Then he goes to Philly. And it's like Embiid was hurt all the time going into the postseason. So then you're relying on Harden again. Hey, man, can you get 30, 40 tonight? He did it multiple times. But then there'd be 4 other games in the same series. He'd get you 10. And they couldn't survive it. So you go here. Now he's in Cleveland. And you look at it and you go, okay, he's got this other guy. And one thing about Donovan Mitchell, now he might not shoot great every night in the playoffs. Going all the way back to his Utah days, you can look at some of his shooting lines. But you know what? The one thing he does not do, he does not change the way he plays. That is something a team can go to battle with. Like, I know what this guy's going to look like. It might not go in on a certain night. He might have one of those 8 for 25 games. He might, but he'll probably get 6-8 free throws. He'll make a couple of threes, and he'll still get to his 25-30. He'll find a way to do that. So I, as a coach and as a supporting cast, you can live with that. What you can't live with is, this guy's our leading scorer, and now tonight he took 8 shots. Now what? That's not Donovan Mitchell. So Harden has this luxury of knowing Mitchell's going to look the same way every night. So if Harden can just, on the nights he really struggles, maybe Harden's a little bit better on those nights, but there's going to be plenty of nights in the postseason that he doesn't have to be an elite scorer. Set the table, get in the paint, collapse the defense, make your guys better. Make Mitchell better. He doesn't have to handle the ball as much all the time up the floor and high ball screen, and it wears him out. So I agree with you 100%. Like, that's a great description of Harden. That's why this has worked. And look, I didn't know what to expect yesterday. Honestly, you think Game 7, in that situation, I think most people are thinking the Pistons are going to win that game. But I think having two guys like that really showed you the difference between that and only having one, particularly one that really hasn't been through any postseason run at all in Cunningham. So for me, that was the biggest difference, man. It's just check the boxes. Cleveland's offense has so much more balance in it, places you could go, and most importantly, two guys that can initiate offense and break down a defense and get the ball moving out of that so all the role players are impactful.
Yeah, the Cavs, just to put a bow on the Cavs part here, they get, Sam Merrill makes a bunch of threes. You get Max Strus back. I'm trying to talk myself into the Cavs because I do think the Knicks are favorites here. But one thing you could talk yourself into is what you said earlier. They have lots of guys that can run off screens. They have two creators. They have two bigs. They actually have a depth of the important pieces of building a roster. And the truth is we haven't really seen them healthy all year long until the very end. And you could make the case that Game 7 represented it all coming together for them. That really was them working their way into their best self, and maybe they reached it. They're going to have to be that to compete with the Knicks because the Knicks are absolutely their best self, at least the last we saw of them. But let's talk about the Pistons here, though, because it's interesting. They stood pat at the trade deadline. They didn't really make big swings this year. They were content with their roster. They won 60 games. They almost lost in round 1, and then they did lose in round 2 in Game 7. And I think in some ways you could say, okay, did they collect data points? Sure. We know that Cade Cunningham is absolutely worth being you should count on him to carry a heavy load in the playoffs, whatever your roster is. I think he is phenomenal in the role that he is in. I think Asar Thompson has looked like an unbelievable defensive player. He has his limitations, but there's no question about him going forward. But here's the thing. Everybody knew the Pistons needed shooting. They didn't have enough shooting, and that was true. But in today's NBA, shooting alone is not enough. And part of me wonders did they collect enough data points to know how to build this roster going forward? And I would argue no, because the moment you add more shooting, now does that shooting also have ball handling? Does it also have defense? Does it have rebounding and athleticism? And if you get some shooters around there, then you go into next year's playoff and it's like, oh, we were missing something else. I feel like the Pistons, although it was a great year, I still feel like I personally don't know exactly how I want to build this roster going forward, especially giving all of the players that they have. And that's the scary part. It's hard to build a contender, and they kind of not punted on this year, but were content to sit pat. And I'm just not sure they know their roster fully enough.
Man, I agree with you. It's so simple to just go, oh, that's shooting.
Right.
Okay, at the cost of what? To your point, at the cost of what? This team won 60 games or a 1 seed. Now, I know it was an unusual year in the East. Okay, Boston didn't have Tatum. Halliburton's out of the mix, right? I mean, I don't know that either one of those teams are the 1 seed, but I'm just saying, like, maybe.
More tough teams,
so it's a weird year. Like, you take that out of the mix. We knew the Knicks and Cleveland would be right there, and they ended up being. Detroit, I knew would be very good. Orlando was the other team I was expecting to, like, be right there in the mix in that top 4. So you look at the year, they still won 60. There's an elite defensive team, an elite offensive rebounding team, an elite transition team. They've got a superstar player at point, so he can do things physically to you that are very difficult to slow down or stop or alter. So it's so simple. People are just going to say, "Oh, offense, add shooters." That's not just that. It's got to be the right mix. Here's what I would say though: the number one thing has to happen for this team. As much as I love Asar Thompson. And this guy, I had him first team All NBA. He was my third place vote getter for Defensive Player of the Year.
First team All Defense.
First team All Defense. I'm sorry. First team All Defense. He was. I voted him third for Defensive Player of the Year, and he was incredible in the playoff. He gave us some of the most spectacular defensive individual plays you're ever going to see a wing make in this league. Do you expect him to add shooting?
No.
We're almost 200 games into his career. Now, I know he's 23. So anybody can say, well, he's only 23. Like, there's plenty of time. Yeah, but at 23 with 200 games under your belt and you're still shooting 20% from the three-point line, and actually it's worse than that because he doesn't even look at the rim anymore.
I was going to say, yeah, he only takes the most comfortable ones.
Dude, and it's got to be late clock with 20 feet of space.
Yeah.
Those are the two circumstances for him to even shoot. Like, I give Ron Holland credit. He's not much better. At least he takes them because it's the only way you can test the boundaries of who you are as a player. But if you're going to run guys out there for 25, 30 plus minutes a night that literally are non-threats other than slashing and rebounding, it's a problem. So I don't know. The answer is, I'd much rather have a shooter than some of these other guys. No, how about the answer is, let's figure out some way to get guys like Holland and Asar Thompson to be at least respectable three-point shooters, for what that will do for your spacing, what that will do for just completing your team without losing two really dynamic defenders, including one guy who, if it wasn't for Victor Wembanyama, would probably be headed to several Defensive Player of the Year awards, but that's wrapped up for the next decade. So he probably won't win one. But rather than just sacrifice that to add shooting and change the entire identity of your team, how about some of the guys we currently have figuring it out? But I'm starting to get concerned. It's not going to happen, Adam. If you're 3 years in and you're not looking at the rim from the three-point line at all, that's not a great sign that this is going to turn around.
No, 100%. But at the same time, I feel like you can afford Asar Thompson, but it just makes the rest of your roster construction difficult because he's so great on defense that you can build something around it. But this is the point. And I brought up the shooting and what else do you lose? Because this was Denver's big takeaway from last year's playoffs. We don't have enough shooting. Oklahoma City was able to sag off of Denver's shooters, and it clogged up the paint. It goes 7. So what do they do this year? Lead the league in three-point percentage. They add guys to the roster that can shoot. They get internal development from guys, and they shoot the best in the NBA this year. But then they get into a playoff series, and all that shooting was nullified because they didn't have enough ball handlers against a team that pressured your ball handlers. And this is my point with Detroit, is it's easy to your point, to say, we just need this. But in my opinion, they also need to figure out who their secondary star is next to Cade Cunningham. That's a big question to me. They need another guy. As we just saw with Mitchell and Harden, you need another guy to be the release valve, because in today's NBA, one of the stories of the playoffs is trap, double the ball, and force somebody else to beat you. Oklahoma City, they're able to do that. Minnesota wasn't able to do that. They had their one creator in Anthony Edwards, but they couldn't make things behind it. Denver, same thing. So I think you look at that and say, it feels like you just need to add some shooting pieces, but in my opinion, you need a lot. And then the bigger point, who really is your core? They, I think, came into this playoffs thinking Asar Thompson, or, Cade Cunningham, of course, Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren, Ron Holland, okay, we have 4 guys that we like as our young core. At this very moment, you have 1, I would say 2, because I still think Asar Thompson, despite all of that. But where does Jalen Duren fit into all of this after a horrible playoffs? Ron Holland, is he worth investing in now that you have so many other boxes you have to check? That's the thing I think the Pistons have to take away from this is we thought we had a 4-man core, and right now I'd say it's 1 3/4.
All right, a couple things here. First, before I talk about what you just said, I want to talk about, sometimes you see a comment that jumps out. So Happy Valley Farm says, Dennis Rodman made the Hall of Fame, though, doing it. Kind of what I was just describing Asar Thompson as. Yeah. Here's the difference. Dennis Rodman, a couple things. First of all, multiple titles, multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards, and he had 6 years that he averaged over 15 rebounds a game, including 3 years over 17. So you have to do it at Ben Wallace, be the same kind of guy. How many Defensive Player of the Year awards did he win? 4. You have to do it at such an extreme level. Like I just said, I don't know when anybody else in this league is going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I'm not exaggerating. It could be a decade straight.
I mean, that part I think for sure.
Yeah, so seriously. So, yeah, he can make some first-team all-defense. But, his statistics are good, steals and blocks, but it's not like Dennis Rodman's getting 18 rebounds a game, man, winning titles next to Jordan. So that's not compare those guys yet. All right, that's one thing. Secondly, all right, let's talk about this Jalen Duren situation. Listen, it was tried to be explained away early in the postseason in the Orlando series. Jalen Suggs is guarding Asar Thompson. So Jalen Suggs isn't guarding Asar Thompson. He's hanging at the edge of the lane. So these pick dives, short rolls that Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham operated all year that were destroying teams isn't there anymore. I'm like, okay, interesting. You're telling me nobody else in the league played them this way this year?
Right.
Okay, so that's first. Now I understand it's different in the playoffs because it's every game the same opponent. So the Orlando Magic in that series, they can really, really affect who they want there. And okay, get it. Now we go to this series. Well, now you say, okay, well now guess who's guarding Asar Thompson in this series? Evan Mobley. So Evan Mobley's hanging on the edge of the lane. So none of that stuff's available to Duren. You go, okay, so you're telling me a guy that made the All-Star team that averaged just under 20, over, I think, 11 rebounds a game, something like that, 64% from the field, one adjustment that teams make by putting like a really elite defender, one guard and one big, Suggs and Mobley in two different series, kind of hanging in the lane, can take him and cut his production in half. Yeah. He took his shooting percentage from 64 to 51. His free throw attempts from 6+ to 3 a game. He had double doubles in 60% of his games this year. He had 3, I believe, in 14 games in the playoffs. You can't explain it away by a defensive adjustment. I'm sorry, you can't. And if that were true,
what is it,
and that was, for me, I thought watching him, he was incredibly sluggish the way he was moving. Now, look, this is a big dude, right? So it's not necessarily going to be like super bursts. I get all that. He wasn't moving the same way. I'm not saying he had an injury. If he did, okay, they never disclosed it. That's, he played through it. Hey, kudos to him. We don't know anything about that. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not giving him an excuse. What I'm saying is, whatever the reason, and sometimes, man, just stress and anxiety and pressure and what you're putting on yourself, and all this talk about the contract, he's going to get his bag this summer and all that. I don't know if all of that, it makes you breathe differently. You run differently. You don't want to quite get open with the same intent as you did in the regular season. Like, I think all of that adds up. But to have your second best offensive player, a guy who was an all-star, get his production cut in half when you have all these other guys that have limitations offensively, it's not survivable unless Tobias Harris is playing out of his mind. And when that dried up, it was game over for this team. So I don't know what to make of the Duren thing. Is he more the guy we saw all season, or is he more this guy? What's your opinion?
I think you have to weigh the playoffs more heavily than the regular season. You just have to. And part of this is because the NBA playoffs and regular season are growing more different from each other. It used to be just a more intense version of the regular season. It feels completely different. But it wasn't, to your point, if it was like every other game he was bad, inconsistent. He was inconsistent at it. You could explain it away. He was bad in basically every single game this playoffs. And I think that's why you have to look at this and really reevaluate.
I got to correct.
He had one good one, right?
I'm gonna give him one.
Yeah, he had one,
and it was a big one. It was a game 7.
Yeah,
against Orlando, he had 15 points, 15 rebounds, and he was a force.
Yeah,
I would not describe him as a force in any of the other games, and that's incredible because I saw them, I don't know, 4 or 5 times in the regular season. And he was a force every night. Yeah. Every time I saw him, he was a force, including a night when Cade wasn't there and he had a 30-point, 15-rebound game. He was the best player on the floor. And he looked so different from a year ago. And man, oh man, to see him struggle the way that he did really surprised me. And here's what I'm going to say, Adam. Go back historically and look at guys that have certain numbers in the regular season, like all-star level numbers, not just your average role player. All-star caliber numbers that dry up to this extent, they're usually guards and wings because they take a lot of jump shots, they take a lot of threes, they take a lot of contested shots. You don't see guys that shoot within 8 feet of the basket, that shoot 65% from the field, dry up to this extent. You just don't see it. Big guys typically are able to continue to do their thing because they're on the offensive glass. They're catching the ball around the basket. They're finishing it. Even if you don't shoot quite as well, right? You're going to still find a way to look very similar to yourself. Guards and wings are the guys that are susceptible to these kind of situations where a guy shoots 32% for a series. And you're like, what the hell happened? It's because it's a lot of tough shots. He's shooting a lot of shots right at the rim. So for me, this was really, really, I'm not unprecedented, but incredibly rare to see a center struggle this much relative to the regular season.
We'll have to see what the Pistons do going forward. I just feel like this year is going to be a really tough one to evaluate, and the moves they're going to make this offseason are going to be very fascinating because, I brought this point up the other day, but you can't take trips to the conference finals or finals for granted. They were a game away. Maybe that's the beginning of a long, sustained era where they make it over and over again, but history shows us that you always feel like you're closer to staying on top than you actually are, and we'll just see what they do to evaluate. We got to take a break, though, Legs, because we have to get to the conference finals. That's what everybody wants to talk about, and we're going to start on the other side by talking about the game we saw coming 7 months ago, or the series that we saw coming, the Spurs and the Thunder clashing in the Western Conference Finals. We'll get to that on the other side. And it's the most electric time in basketball. On Kalshi, you can trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, and the championship. Right now, let me run it down for you. Oklahoma City is trading at 58% chance to win the NBA championship. I feel like that's really high, given that I feel like this next series is a coin flip. San Antonio, 24%. The Knicks, 16%. The Cavs, just 4% up on Kalshi at the moment. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there is no house. And so the probabilities change. You can buy in and out of your position, which is really cool. It's not like you just play something and then you have to stick with it to the bitter end. You can buy in and out of that position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use the code ALLNBA, all one word, to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Even contract trading or event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. I also want to tell you guys about Shopify. What kind of dreams did you have when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? How about now? Are you thinking about starting your own business or maybe your own side hustle? Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Shopify even powers the All City merch store. That's right. You can get the link in the description here. Shopify has got you covered with website creation, product descriptions, email and social media marketing, and more. They also have AI tools designed to help you maximize sales. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All NBA show. Me and Tim Legler here. And real quick, I just want to let everybody know that we have these prospect breakdowns. 5 minutes, you can get familiar with all of the players in the lottery this year. Today, we dropped Darius Acuff. What I know people really fell in love with his offense. 5 minutes, you can get to know everything you need to know about him. Strengths, weaknesses, best comps, and best fits. Will Gottlieb is doing a great job on those. So after the show is over, make sure you go and check all of those out. Legs, let's get to the game, or the series everybody's talking about, Spurs Thunder. And the NBA really lucked out in some ways that these two teams made it to where they made it, because I do think that now as we sit here on the precipice of this series, it really is exciting, man. It's got so many storylines. It's a true rivalry, and it does feel like one of those, the first playoff matchup between teams I kind of expect to match up in the playoffs for years to come.
This is the series that was sort of was on a collision course the entire year.
Really was.
Right. That's really what we were expecting, and especially when San Antonio stunned the Thunder, like stunned the world really, by beating them 3 times in like 10 days. And that's when really everybody realized, okay, this San Antonio thing got here ahead of schedule. And so ever since then, you kind of were expecting this, and I think it's fitting that this is going to be the series to decide who goes to the finals. A lot of people, and I'm not ready to go there at all, but a lot of people are going to say, hey, whoever wins the series wins the whole thing. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there's going to be work to be done still. So I'm not going to go there, but this is 2 teams that can beat you in so many different ways, in a lot of ways mirror images of each other, in the way that they defend, the way even in a lot of ways they run their offense. And I can't wait to see like how this series gets kicked off. In fact, that OKC's been sitting there, they're waiting. Thunder had to work a little bit harder. The Spurs had to work a little bit harder. Spurs now coming to OKC with a very rested OKC team, where typically in the playoffs, if OKC has ended a series and they're sitting there waiting, they are incredible what the energy they bring to the table defensively in that first game. So, but San Antonio has had a little bit of rest, like reasonable amount, not like Cleveland certainly going into New York with 1 day off. That's going to be a different scenario. But this is, Oklahoma City rested, fresh, ready to unleash all of that defensive energy at San Antonio, man. And I cannot wait to see what we have in store tonight.
I don't know if the rest is going to play a big factor, and here's why. The Spurs did get a little bit of rest. It's not like they're sprinting right into this. They're going to end up with like 4 or 5 days off. But if you ever watch the Spurs play, man, Stephon Castle, every time there's a dead ball, goes up and dunks it. Like, you know how kids at AAU level, they just have endless energy. They're in the layup lines doing dunks and windmills and everything else. I just think the Spurs are young and fresh, and they just don't look tired. So I don't know how big of a factor it'll play. But let me ask you this one, though, because I think about this a lot. Does a series prepare you for the next series? If you look at what San Antonio just went through, very physical on-ball pressure, physical big defenders that get into your space, a rim protector, in Rudy Gobert that you have to kind of figure out and work around. It's very similar in a lot of ways to what you're going to see from Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City just played the Suns and the Lakers, 0 rim protection. And they're going to go from that to Wembanyama, the best rim protector maybe of all time. I feel like, and again, I don't want to overstate it because I don't know if these things actually prepare you for the next round, but I do feel like Minnesota was a bit of training wheels for Oklahoma City, and some of the stuff that they were successful at, including handling physicality, will serve them in this next round when that's the calling card for OKC.
No, it's fair. Listen, to answer the question you first put out, which is, can one series prepare you for the next? In some cases it can. And in some cases it might not necessarily be because the next opponent is similar to the one you just beat and you figured that puzzle out. No, but how about in a case like the Knicks? They literally kind of reinvented how they wanted to use Towns mid-series against Atlanta, and they continued that in the next series.
Great point.
So like in some ways, yes, that helped them prepare for how they're going to play, period. Now it's going to be a different challenge with the Cavs with the bigs that are going to be guarding Towns than what he just saw. But and the mobility that those guys have relative to Embiid, and of course Atlanta didn't have any bigs. So, but to your point, yeah, I do think there's some carryover in how you play. But man, what an adjustment! You're right. What an adjustment for Oklahoma City to turn the corner off a ball screen or an ISO, or whatever, like drive, and here comes a slasher from the weak side. Here comes Chet slashing in. You hit him, and he goes up and he finishes against what Phoenix was putting up there on the front line, what the Lakers were putting up there on the front line, even what you had to guard on the other end. I mean, Devin Booker's a really, really good player, but it's just different than what you're going to have to deal with in this. Lakers didn't have Luka. Austin Reeves wasn't himself. So yes, you're right. Oklahoma City has not seen anything to this point in the postseason close to what they're about to see. Whereas San Antonio at least was pushed physically in the last series and had to figure out how to play through a lot of contact and holding and grabbing and just physical toughness defensively. I think Oklahoma City does it more with speed. Felt like Minnesota does it more with brawn, holding you, grabbing you, hitting you. Oklahoma City is more about cutting you off, having a guy there every time you penetrate to help. They recover out to the three-point line lightning quick. So it's different. How they do it's with speed more than anything. But San Antonio at least did get almost toughened up, ready for this series as opposed to Oklahoma City and what they dealt with in trying to operate against two defenses that weren't really equipped to stop them.
And they didn't just pass the test, they aced it. I mean, it was that series blew up at the end of it. I mean, they dominated and controlled it. In fact, they broke Minnesota's will. Minnesota, the toughest team. I always talk about why I respect them so much is because of how tough they are. At the end of that series, it's almost like their toughness faded away because they knew it wasn't having an impact. And so it's a huge credit to San Antonio. And here's where I think there's two main battlegrounds in this series. The first one is just Wemby's ability to limit OKC's offense. Players against Wemby in the paint this postseason, 19% below their average in the playoffs, going when Wemby is on the floor versus what they typically would score in the paint. That's a huge difference, almost 20% difference. He's clearly taking away the rim. That's not news. We knew that would be the case. But OKC's a mid-range team, and Shea's a mid-range team. So you wonder, is Wemby going to have that same impact just on straight how your offense is divided? I don't know. And then the second part is the Spurs, part of when I say Minnesota prepared them for it, the Spurs were able to trap Ant, leave Wemby at the rim, and then just scramble around and take everything away. But Minnesota's bad off of traps. They're not great. Oklahoma City is phenomenal at it. They've built their whole offense around if teams trap Shea, do we know what to do and can we finish plays? And the answer has been yes. So I think those are the two big battlegrounds. Does OKC need to get to the rim to win? And can they break traps? If San Antonio is going to try to trap Shea, get the ball out of his hands, how efficient can they be swinging the ball and shooting threes, which is the only way you can kind of mitigate Wemby?
So here's the thing. I think Wemby does actually pose a problem even in the mid-range. Now, it's not like he's
Right,
blocking those shots, but he's definitely there. He's in the area, one step, the reach. It's different visually what you're looking at when you're trying to make the shot and concentrate on the rim. Even if he comes in late with a contest, it's like it's a different, that layer of your defense. Obviously, getting to the rim is completely different. But listen, this is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's wheelhouse. Okay, this is where this guy operates. He likes to operate 15 to 20 feet, 12 to 18 feet, where Wemby is to a certain extent negated with his ability to erase stuff at the rim. Now, they do like to slash and cut as well. They like to attack closeouts after Shai's done his work and kicks it out. It's not like they're jacking 45, 53s like Boston. They're going to then attack the closeout. So this is where Wemby becomes a factor as well for those guys. And you wonder what happens to the three-point numbers, the volume for Oklahoma City. Is it going to go up? Because that is going to be the best shot they're going to get on given possessions. I think it's a key indicator to watch. What does their three-point total look like in the early part of, like, say, first half of game one or through the totality of game one? Does that number spike a little bit? Because that's what's available. And that's not necessarily how they want to play. They can shoot threes, and there are nights they can make 15, 18 threes. They've had nights like that. That's not really what they want to do. It's mid-range, some threes mixed in, a ton of transition because they turn you over and they get to the line. So these and Shai gets to the line, really. He takes, I don't even know what percentage of their free throws, but it's a crazy percentage of their free throws goes to Shai. So they have a formula, and Wemby does affect that formula. And the question is, to what extent does he affect the formula that they've used all year, they've used for the last two seasons? That's the fascinating part of the series.
And to your point about Shai, he's good because he can shoot the 18-foot mid-range, the 15, the 12, the 9. And so you're always off balance, even though he only needs a little bit of space. He only needs a little bit, but you're always worried at 18 feet that he'll get to 15 or 15 back to 18 or up to 12. Wemby kind of takes away the 12 and in. So now if you're chasing him around screens or you're guarding him, you're guessing less about where is he going because there's only going to be a few spots before Wemby starts to impact it. I don't know if Wemby's going to impact 18 feet too much, but he will. 15, a little bit. 12, a lot. 9, take it away completely. And so now Shai is operating in even a tighter space, and we'll see how that affects him specifically. Let's go to the physicality part here because Oklahoma City is also going to try to just get into their space and be physical. But here's where the Spurs, and this is the revelation I've had in this back half of the season, their guards are designed for the modern NBA ball pressure. Steph Castle is so strong, and same with Dylan Harper, but Stephen Castle is so strong that when you get physical with him, it wears you out as a defender more than it wears him out. He's able to take contact but not break his line in a way that I think is going to be a big X factor in the series. Can Dort and Cason Wallace and all the other guys that are going to be throwing at him, can they lodge him off of his spot, or is he actually designed for that type? The more you wrestle him, the better he is.
That's a good point. I mean, that's what this series for me, more than anything else, is going to come down to the ability for Oklahoma City to contain the ball. That's what it's going to come down to. Between Castle, Fox, and Harper, can they keep the ball in the paint? Those guys had a lot of success against them in the regular season, being able to do that. So, and Oklahoma City is not used to having that done to them. Yeah. It was a major factor. It's hard because they're physical guards. They also have enough quickness to get by guys, but mainly, especially Harper and Castle, they're not going to sit there. Fox's next level quickness. These guys, they're quick and they're explosive, but it's mainly strength. That's really what they're getting a half step on you, and they're just going to ride you on their shoulder, and you can't get back in front to cut them off. Oklahoma City's not used to that. They're used to being able, with all those guys, being able to slide, cut you off, stop you, or contain you enough by yourself. You don't need to overcommit help. San Antonio was breaking them down to the point they needed a second defender to jump in the driving lane. Now the ball is much more difficult to catch up to. Most teams can't beat those guys off the dribble. The Carusos of the world, the Cason Wallaces, the Shais, they can't beat those guys off the dribble by themselves. San Antonio's guards could. And that's, to me, a huge thing to look for. So a couple things I've already given. The three-point volume for OKC. I want to see what that number looks like. I also want to see how well do they contain the basketball without committing extra defenders against their top guards? Well, their three guards, really.
I think Castle and Harper are going to be able to handle this. I'm not sure about De'Aaron Fox. He might be the key because he can become a little bit more turnover prone. He's quick, but not necessarily strong in the way those other guys are. So can Oklahoma City get under his skin, force him to have a horrible series and, create some fast break opportunities off of that? I think we'll have to see about that. The non-Wemby minutes will be interesting too. The Spurs dominated when Wemby was on the court in the regular season in this matchup. They lost the minutes where he was off. I think Oklahoma City's depth is clearly better. I mean, Spurs have depth, but the Oklahoma City, some of the best depth we've ever seen. So can they win those minutes? And then J-Dub's impact him coming back, how much can he give you? He's been out of rhythm. They've actually found a great rhythm with A.J. Mitchell, who does exactly what I think you have to do off of Shea if teams are going to trap. Do you have another guy that can not only score, but can get into the paint and create other scoring opportunities for other guys against an overloaded defense? A.J. Mitchell is kind of elite at this. J-Dub is also elite at this. But is there now a little confusion because you've settled into a rhythm with A.J. Mitchell and now it's J-Dub? I mean, again, I think Oklahoma City's smart enough and those guys are good enough to figure it out. But at least it's a variable to say we have gotten here one way and now we're shifting back to our old way. It could cause a problem.
Listen, there's no doubt about it. It's something that you've got to look at because of how well A.J. Mitchell has played. This is going to be interesting now to insert Jalen Williams into this. The guy can really play, and he's a two-way player. He's a great defender. No one's going to think for a second, oh, man, I don't know, he's going to mess up the flow. Like, the guy's too good of a player, and he's been really good on the big stage for them. So it helps, but it is something else added to the series and added to Mark Dagnall's thinking that changes the flow and the rotation a little bit. There's another aspect to this I want to keep an eye on. I think Stephon Castle, if I'm not mistaken, in 4 games, I think, but they played 5 times this year?
They played 5. One of them, I think, was a little bit of
one was a throwaway game.
Throwaway game, yeah.
Stephon Castle, he picks up fouls against his team. Like, he's averaged 4 fouls, I think, a game, and hit 5 in a game. Like, and it's because he's so physical. He's going to get Shea. He's not going to get Shea exclusively, but he's going to get his turn on Shea, man. That's what they want on him. Yeah. That's something to look for. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander gets a good whistle, and he's able to get a couple early fouls on Stephon Castle. Now, they have Harper, so they have depth at this position, but the whole point is it's nice to have 3 of those guys so you keep them fresh. You rotate them in, man, one after another, so you always have 2 of those guys on the court. And now if Castle's physicality and how much he's probably so hyped for this matchup, does Shea Gilgeous-Alexander use it against him? He's overly aggressive. Now Shea gets him on some calls and sends him to the bench. It's just something else to look at.
I actually think it's a big deal because we're talking about with OKC, you don't see that same thing other than Shea. If Shea got into foul trouble, but he's rarely in foul trouble. But if A.J. Mitchell got into foul trouble, you have replacements. You have guys you can go to. It's not necessarily the case for San Antonio with Castle, with Wemby, maybe with Fox, maybe with Dylan Harper. So they do have some guys that feel less replaceable than you do on the other end. Anything else from that? I just think it's going to be a great series. I'll tell you, I think San Antonio is going to win it. It's a 50-50 series, so this isn't like I don't want to put too much on this. But I just think there is something too. We can't gloss over the fact that San Antonio won these games in the regular season when they mattered. And it wasn't even just like throwaway games. In-season tournament, there were big games between the two and them winning them and winning them comfortably. Wemby dominating when he was on the floor. That matters to me. And so I look at this series and say they're both great, great teams. But I think San Antonio has the edge in the matchup.
Great teams. I don't know. I'm not predicting who's going to win. I think the home team, typically in this situation, if 2 teams you think are pretty evenly matched, you love that home court advantage. That's why you played all year to get that last game at home. If it takes that, I would not be shocked one bit. This goes 7 games. I would not be shocked one bit if either one of these teams win. They're that good. They're that complete. The fact that they can beat you any way you want. You want to play fast? Let's play fast. We can get up and down with it. You want to have a night where it's going to take maybe 15, 16 threes? We can do that. You want to have a night where it's 98, 95? We can play that way too and shut you down late if we need to. So that's what makes it so fascinating. There is no set formula that this has to happen for this team to win a game because there's other ways they can go about it. Their depth, both teams incredibly deep, incredibly well coached. No chemistry issues. These guys are pulling in the same direction. It's just everything about it adds up to an epic series And in a lot of ways, I think the NBA should be grateful. All NBA fans, unless you're one of the teams that's already been eliminated, I get it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if you just love the NBA, I think this is the series that you kind of needed to see.
It's going to be incredible hoops, and I think it'll be a series we talk about for years and years to come, because the first time you match up, two rivalries or two teams that are in a rivalry, the first time they match up matters, and I think it's going to matter to all of the guys on the court. Let's go to the series you're calling, though. Knicks, Cavs, tell me about this one. What is it you're looking for that you found most interesting as you were prepping for the series?
Without question, it's what the Knicks have become offensively. And who would have thought the night we were sitting there in Atlanta, and Mike Breen, myself, Richard Jefferson, Lisa Salters, we were calling that game. And the Knicks go up 60. I'm sure you remember that night.
I do remember it.
Game six. It's a 61-point game at one point.
Yeah.
And I described the first half as perfect basketball, and I think it was. Here's what's weird, the way organically things can happen for your team. It's a byproduct of just going out and playing. In that game, Mikal Bridges had been not non-existent, but close to it offensively in the first 5 games of that series. That night, he comes out and he goes nuts in the first half of that game. And it was incredible. And guess what? He hasn't slowed down since. He made something like 42 of 54 shots going forward from the field as a wing. So my point being this, that was like the last thing that we needed to see offensively, because you already had OG playing at elite level. Now let's see if he comes back from the injury. Looks like he's good to go. Karl Anthony Towns, even those numbers down, being included more. His skill set coming out. We're all praising the guy for his passing, and Brunson's Brunson. You had all 4 of their top guys now rolling, going in. Josh Hart doing his thing, bench playing great, right? So for me, it's can they continue this? Cavaliers were a mediocre defensive team this year. They were 15th, I think, in defensive efficiency in the regular season. They're middle of the pack amongst playoff teams. They win on given nights because their offense can be really, really good. So the question I have is, can the Cavs do what Atlanta couldn't in the last 3 games of that series, what Philadelphia couldn't at all, slow down this buzzsaw that is the New York Knicks offense? That, to me, is the crux of the series. That's the biggest question. I don't know that we're going to get that answer tomorrow night, by the way, because it's a tough circumstance to play 7, turn around, get a day, and go play.
So
right?
tough.
Philly just went through it with Boston. They came into Madison Square Garden for game 1 of that series. They got run out of the gym. By the end of the first quarter, game's over. Okay, so I'm not saying you're going to know tomorrow night, but certainly by halftime of game 2, you're going to have a feel if Cleveland can slow down this machine that the New York Knicks offense has become.
And part of me wonders, I mean, OG Anunoby's also a big story here. It looks like he's going to be able to go, but, the hamstring injury is one of those things that I think will be in the back of your mind and could pop up at any moment. And even if he starts the series, if he has to go out or if it is just hampering him, it could, there's a psychological effect when you kind of are counting on a guy and then he has to be dealing with that. So I think OG Anunoby is big. I think the battle, though, another interesting thing, I mentioned earlier in the show that I thought the Cavs have settled into this Harden sets the table, Donovan Mitchell attacks. Donovan Mitchell has a history here in that the Knicks really wanted him to be the guy that Brunson became. And so there's a natural rivalry, I think, here. And part of me wonders how Brunson has taken a step back in control of the offense to get off ball and allow them to become their best self. Mitchell has taken a step back in some ways to allow Harden to play point, and both guys are still super effective and most important players on their teams. But I'm curious if either one of them presses and makes this into too much of a one-on-one battle, because naturally there has to be a rivalry there, both guys kind of in the same class and category.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. This is going to be, listen, I'm picturing more than anything else, Adam. I want to see a big part of this series is going to be handling the pressure of the moment.
I agree.
And I really mean it, because look, the Knicks are home court, but there's a lot of pressure that comes with playing in Madison Square Garden with a chance to go to the finals, right? It's a little different in certain markets. It's a lot of pressure that comes with that, man, to like be your best when their team's going to require it, or bail a guy out who's having a bad night because you were really good. And then, of course, for the Cavs, that they have guys that have been affected by pressure in the past. So there's a lot at stake, man, for both of these organizations. Probably, I would say, more pressure for the Knicks, just because everybody right now in New York is tasting this.
I know.
Like, they're tasting it. Like, we're they got to the conference finals a year ago. They didn't get it across the line. They didn't get to the finals. They can sense it and taste it in New York. You're going to feel that if like these games are tight in the fourth quarter. So I want to see which group is more equipped to handle that and make shots under duress. Jalen Brunson's proven it time and time again. Like, he seems like he's made for that stage, made for that moment. Let's see. If these games are close in the fourth quarter, is that the differentiating factor, the mental makeup of Jalen Brunson?
How happy are you to be calling these games, Legs? It's got to be. We were talking beforehand. I know you're hyped.
Well, last year, it was my first really like full season as a game analyst, and but it stopped for me after the second round, because then you hand it over to a different group for the conference finals and finals. Well, now this year I am part of that different group, so it's great. I didn't have to stop after the second round, and now to be able to call the Eastern Conference Finals and the electricity that the Garden represents, it's going to be unbelievable. And then I'm just obviously just to be calling the NBA Finals this year is just like pinnacle of my career as a broadcaster, and I'm just so blessed to do it and cannot wait to get this started tomorrow night.
Cue that outro music, Atticus. And this is why this show, man, I love it all year long, but these last two rounds, you're going to have literally the best seat in the house. Where are you sitting on these games? Like literally right at half court?
Right at midcourt. So I'm looking at the court. I have got Mike Breen to my left.
Yeah.
We've got, our stat guy next to Mike Breen. Then who do you want? Tracy Morgan? You want Matthew Modi? You want Ben Stiller? You want C. DiCaprio? Like, who do you want sitting there? I mean, DiCaprio's LA. Sorry.
Yeah,
I get my stars confused sometimes.
Yeah, man, it's going to be incredible. I'm so excited you're on the call for this, and I'm excited for our show. It should be phenomenal, and of course, we're going to be getting all the insights. Our show this week, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and that'll give us an opportunity. On Wednesday's show, we'll already have both game ones in the book, and then we'll get to focus on each of the series for the following 2 days, which should be great. And like I said, Legs is going to be right there courtside, so who better to break it all down than our guy on the All-NBA show. We appreciate you guys so much. If you enjoyed the show, do us a huge favor. Hop on over and watch our profile on Darius Acuff. 5 minutes, you can get familiar with his game. And if you missed any from last week, Cam Boozer, AJ DeBansa, we've got Wilson, and we've got, who's the other one? Peterson. So we have 5 players out right now. We're dropping new ones every a couple times a week. We'll have 2 more new ones after Acuff today. So it should be fantastic. Make sure you're watching those for us and share them on social media. Hit the like button for us on the way out. Enjoy game ones. We'll see you Wednesday.
We all silly like the mayor.